So, yeah. I see Rob. Do you want me to pull him up?
Please.
Okay.
Hey there.
Hey, Rob, sorry about that. I don't know how you got. Is Roger there too, Prentice?
Yep, got him.
You got him? Okay. So we're gonna get started. As well, the attendees are still joining. So we'll wait for a sec. So it looks like we're at about 163 attendees. So Prentice, good evening, everyone. My name is Sophia King, Alderman of the 4th Ward. Also joined here by Alderman Byron Cicho Lopez, Alderman of the 25th Ward. Just some procedural things. We have, it looks like about 170 attendees now. What we're going to do is raise kind of, I think, about third one up to a panelist so we can have a real discussion. It's just going to be arbitrary. My chief of staff will do that. While he's doing that, I just want to give a brief introduction of all the panelists that are here, and including our officers from our South Loop Advisory Council. I think we'll also be joined by Alderman Dow. I think she had another commitment, so she may be joining us a little late. But as panelists, as I'm introducing panelists, Prentice, you'll raise some of the folks to some of the attendees to panelists so we can have kind of a real discussion here. First of all, I'd like to introduce Captain Seamus from the 1st District. I think I see Captain Seamus there. Can you hear me, Captain? Excuse me, Captain Mannion.
Same difference.
Yeah, but I appreciate you tremendously. I know you're off today.
No. The flight was perfectly timed and I am ready to go. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I know folks are also wondering who our new commander is. When you speak later, if you can introduce her. I don't think she's joining us this evening, but we do have a new.
I think she was going to try, actually. She was going to try to log on. So.
All right. Well, when she logs on, we'll let you introduce her.
Perfect.
And we also have Sergeant Fleming from the 1st District. Sergeant, can you just wave?
Yes, hello, I'm here. I'm the community policing sergeant here in the 1st District.
Great. We also have Detective, I think, Mia Oakleyor. Is she here in attendance? No? Okay, I may have that wrong. I do know we have Area 3 Detective Sergeant Perez.
Can you hear me?
Perez? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
now we can.
Yeah.
Great. We also have the owner of the Caribbean Jerk Palace, Miss Angel McDonald, I believe. She on the line? Not yet?
I've not seen her yet, Alderman.
Okay, make sure she's not in the, as an attendee. And if you can just touch base with her. We also have Roots Pizza owner, Scott Weiner. Scott, I know you're driving, but if you could just say hello. I saw him a second ago. Oh, there you are, Scott. Can you say hello? We can't hear you for some reason. I can see your mouth moving, just can't hear you. All right. We also have from BACP, Deputy Commissioner Tamara Starks. Can you unmute or no? Maybe you can't. Are you able to unmute
Yes.
yourself? Okay, great.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner. We also have from the Department of Family and Support Services, Ms. Chandra Libby.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening,
Okay.
everyone.
Great, thank you. We also have from OEMC, the Office of Emergency Management and Communications. I saw earlier, I thought I saw Director Guidus, but I also see a Mr. Dennis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Dennis, the first deputy at OEMC.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. I appreciate you. We also have from the Chicago Park District, Mr. Thomas Snooks, security, head of security there. Is Mr. Snooks on?
Hello, Alderman and everybody.
Thank you for joining us. And then we have from our South Loop Advisory Council, the chair of the Safety Committee, Mr. Roger Marsh.
Hi, folks.
Great. And our new chair of the Advisory Council, Mr. Robert Hard.
Everyone.
All right. And so, did I miss anybody?
Hi, good afternoon.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Carla Orlandini from OEMC is with you as well.
Okay, we have Miss Carla Orlandini from OEMC. And then Scott, were you the one saying, can I hear you now?
Yeah, I think I figured it out.
Okay, we
Hey,
do
everybody.
hear you. Great. Mr. Statweiner from Roots Pizza. All right, so we've got a pretty generous agenda this evening, and so we want to try and stick to that, and then, more importantly, get to your questions. First on our agenda, we are going to review some crime data. Mr. Robert Marsh will go over that with you. Again, he is the chair of the Safety Committee for the South Loop Advisory Council. He also serves many hats. I'll let him tell you about some of those, but he's also with South Loop Neighbors. I know they had a safety meeting earlier on Monday, which I couldn't attend because we had constituent night. But Roger, why don't you take it from here?
Okay. Good to talk with you folks. This is a report on kind of crime stats history of the past few years, focusing on Beat 123. For those of you who are not familiar, Beat 123 goes from Roosevelt Road up to Ida B. Wells Drive, and then from Michigan Avenue west to the river. Crime across the years in all of the South Loop, and again in Beat 123, has been fairly consistent, but going down gradually as the number of residents goes up. We're seeing a trend downward. To get into this report, we started out looking at the normal 3 years of 2017, 2018, and 2019. And these figures are just for Beat 123. You can see on the chart there that we've got them month by month, and then across those 3 years. We then took the grand total of all crime reports for those 3 years and developed an average of the three, and that's going to be the base of our statistics.
Roger, we don't see the stats. Are you sharing, or is that something Prentice is sharing?
I've got a shared screen. I thought it's up.
Nope.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me
That's
get
okay.
back to, I'm going to,
And while he's doing that, just everybody make sure they're muted while he's talking. Just some of the background noise can impact. Yeah. Yeah, like Miss Corbin, I'll mute you.
okay, now do you see it?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So
That's
as I
okay.
said, we're starting out with the normal generating a normal average for the years, and we used 2017, 18, and 19 to do that. We then, of course, through the COVID years, been tracking that year to year, and I'm going to be focusing on the first 5 months of 2021, again within beat 1, 2, 3. We looked at those numbers and then said, okay, so far in the first 5 months, there's been a total of 442 crime reports generated. If you project that for how many we would likely end up with at a full year, that's going to be at 1,061. Compare that with the average of those 3 normal years. Crime reporting is down 38%, or at least what is projected. By the end of the year, it'll be down 38%. Now, as I'm kind of putting this joke up here, if you have 1 foot in a bucket of boiling water and the other foot in a bucket of ice water, on the average, you're comfortable. What I'm saying is that sometimes looking at the first blush of statistics doesn't really tell us that much. We've got to dig a little deeper to do that. So we use these 3 normal years and then looked at the projections of what that would mean comparatively for 2021. Based on 2021 year projections, the total crime rate is going to be down by 38%. Now, why is that? We haven't done the research on it, but it sure looks like during COVID, we weren't out on the street and therefore weren't getting attacked. And the stores were closed, so they weren't getting robbed. Could be a good portion of that. But within that, we can look at various crime categories, and these are in the lower part of the chart here. These crime, the crime types are determined by the FBI, but we saw that there were 3 of them. When we're projecting, it looks like they're not going to be down nearly as much as that 38%. Looks like battery is going to be down about 21%. Criminal damage only down about 4%, and criminal trespass down about 20%. But balancing that, there are certain crime types which will actually have increased based on the numbers we're seeing in the first 5 months. Motor vehicle theft looks like it's going to end up 39%. Sex offenses up 66%. And weapons violations up 500% versus those 3 average years. What that's telling me is even though total crime report is projected to be down in beat 1, 2, 3 at the end of the year, 500% increase in weapons violations alone doesn't make us feel like crime has gone down at all. There's some good news on that particular front though. The 4th Ward, along with the 1st Police District and the City of Chicago's attorney, have forced the operator of the parking ramp at 108 South Wabash to hire security. That site has been the location of many of those weapons violations as well as narcotics incidents.
801. Sorry to interrupt, but 801 South Wabash.
Okay, did I say that wrong?
You
Yep.
said 108. I just want to make sure. I don't
Okay.
want to, sorry to interrupt you, sir.
That's
Just so they
fine,
realize.
yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, no, yeah, one thing I've noticed as I get into my 70s, that once in a while I get my words wixed.
I do that at 44. Thank you.
We all do. Okay. The other thing I've been asked to mention very quickly is the report that Alder King said about our meeting on Monday. There were a number of organizations in the South Loop sponsoring the launch of a neighborhood watch program for Beat 1, 2, 3. South Loop Neighbors was there, the Printers Row, Park Advisory Council, the South Loop Referral Group, and a number of condo associations were part of that. So, you know, putting this thing together, and I appreciate the fact that the ward is also pushed through and set up this meeting. A lot of things happening very fast now. We had the meeting on Monday, both live and streaming. Live, we had about 125 people at Grace Place, and we had over 300 that registered for our Zoom, which overcapacitated us quite a bit. We're going to be following that up. So if you are interested in joining us in creating a neighborhood watch association for Beat 123. We'll have contact points available to you soon. Okay. With that, I've done the reports I've been asked to do. Any questions, I'll be glad to respond to.
No, thank you. Thank you, Roger, for that. Next up, we're going to bring Rob Hard, our president of the South Loop Advisory Council. Well, he's going to address some specific crimes that I think everybody has been asking about, mostly probably directed to the detectives, but and we'll be asking follow-up questions. While he's doing that, I'd love to have Alderman Cicho Lopez say a couple of words. I know he's on a tight schedule as well. He wanted to just join as well as Alderman Dow. I think she's coming in just a little later. But, you know, we all see this as the South Loop community. We don't expect you guys to know our boundaries. And we want to work kind of as one unit for all of you. So Alderman Cicho Lopez.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman King. Certainly, I see a lot of the questions in the chat about the two incidents, in particular, the murder of Maryland PhD, Maryland student, and another shooting of a man who got involved dozens of rounds of shootings. And I think that we are extremely fortunate that there were not other people hurt. Again, I think one of the things that I want to just share, that there's certainly not a silver bullet in terms of public safety. Is a complex issue. We live in a community that is being affected as many others. And I do think that it's important that we build these kind of conversations. I think the collaboration, I know Alderwoman King and I have been in close communications, as well as neighbors and the first district. There's also, of course, the root causes, right? What's happening in other parts of the city as well. And we all should be concerned about that as well and work towards systemic changes in terms of public safety, violence prevention, and preventive measures. As we're working towards the immediacy and the immediate changes, we also have to make sure that we work towards preventive measures as well. So I'm glad to see people from DFSS. I know that they have, yesterday we had a conversation with 25th Ward, specific issues. We're gonna be having a round of discussions with all the condo associations and buildings to have smaller conversations and continue to host this dialogue that is critical to find solutions. I think that we need to work towards best practices and research-based solutions that help us understand the complexity and the interconnectivity between all these issues across communities in the city of Chicago. So thank you, Alderwoman King, for allowing me to listen in. I will be listening into the conversation, and I look forward to work with you and the residents on proactive solutions to this top priority in the city of Chicago.
Thank you, Alderman Cicho Lopez. And now we'll go to Rob to follow up on those specific crimes.
Okay. I believe Prentice Mr. Butler will be sharing the screen. I just wanted to add a comment to follow up with Roger's comments, the idea about the level and the numbers of crimes that we're experiencing as a community. While in some levels, there's certain line items that feel to be, that it may be smaller. The difference is that the crimes are happening on every one of our major blocks now. The crimes are happening on Michigan and Roosevelt, on State, on Dearborn recently, on Clark Street, on Wells Street, on Harrison Street. And I think that kind of, because the nature of the larger crimes that we have outlined here, which I compiled from some of the comments that people have shared with me, I think that's what creates some of the perceptions of what we need to do to be more proactive as a community. That's what's triggering the idea of the community watch groups that are being created. I think it's great that, both aldermen and actually Alderman Dowell are all good, focused on public safety and crime, and creating a dialogue that's focused on trying to create solutions, and also the dialogue that's focused on being transparent. So What I have here, and I don't know if we can increase the view and zoom that in. These are examples of this is not meant to be every all-inclusive, every kind of crime that's occurred. But as we go through this, this list of questions for the panelists, I hope that people get an appreciation that we're trying to have a conversation tonight that's looking at what's happening in the community, what solutions are in place, the relationship that we have with CPD, the relationship we have with City Hall. We certainly have strong relationships with our aldermen and our businesses, and it's good that the community feels that it's important to be passionate for answers. So in general, I'm kind of hoping that with these questions that we have, that we're going to be hearing direct answers today, at least of what can be shared, but then also kind of like looking at what solutions can be presented, and then actually focusing on documenting results. It's really good to be passionate about the different issues and the different crimes that occur. It can be, people can be passionate about, you know, issues of noise and different things, but if we can actually try to focus on documented results, that would be really super helpful. For that said, as Alderman King was saying, we have this list of, you know, the bigger crimes up front first, and I thought that what we would try to do is just take and have the panelists kind of addressing CPD and other folks, like what we know about each of these crimes. And we were looking at these individually, but I see these things collectively. So I kind of thought we'd go through one by one. At first I was going to start, you know, with Printers Row, but I thought we'd go with some date items. And I'm going to speak to, I think, a sense of how the community feels as a result of the Printers Row shooting, and hopefully the actions that might be followed up. So that said, the most recent one that's created a lot of concern and chat and different kinds of reports is the stabbing and the killing of the 31-year-old woman over in the 400 South block of South Wacker. So if we can talk about that.
Detective Sergeant, could you give us an update there?
Sure. Sergeant Al Perez, by the way, for everybody. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself earlier. I work violent crimes in Area 3. With the young lady that was stabbed on Wacker Avenue, we have video that shows that the offender is a male Black that resides in the encampment. There's a homeless encampment underneath Wacker Drive. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. We have video, it's grainy, and we're trying to get witnesses to identify this offender so that we can go out and get him. We don't know him by name yet, but you know, we have video and we're trying to get a good witness to help us identify this offender.
Okay, so you have a sense of who that is, but it's a matter of finding a witness of that one crime that one day. Have you reviewed video footage to find witnesses?
Yes, we have. We've talked to a couple of them, but unfortunately, they don't have the confidence to say that they saw his face to give us a positive ID.
Okay.
And we are also looking at other crimes that happened in the area, like there was an aggravated assault that another detective is handling, and the description of the offender is the same as this offender of the stabbing. So we're looking into that to see if maybe we can connect the crimes. But right now, we are going to put out a community alert with a general description of him. I will tell you that it's a male Black. He's about 5'9" to 5'11". He could have dreads, or it could be a bandana that looks like a dreads hairstyle. So we'll be putting that out shortly with all the crimes that we believe that he's connected to.
Okay. And will you be including like the image from the grainy video or anything like that so people can be aware of that?
I will ask our commander if that's appropriate now, because we want to make sure that that is in fact him. The thing with the video is that all we see, we don't capture the actual incident. All we capture is him running away. So I want to be perfectly clear that that is him before I put out an image of him.
Okay.
But if that's appropriate, then yeah, we will add an image to it.
I would think as much information about each of the crimes and each of the people associated with it for the community is probably a good one, because individuals would want to probably know and be mindful on the streets if there's someone like that. And also, is CPD watching this guy to keep an eye on him so he doesn't have any subsequent activity?
Well, here's the thing is that we don't know who it is exactly. I can tell you that he goes to a particular tent, but that tent has been empty since. You know what I mean? So we don't know where he's at. We don't know if he's in hiding. We don't know where he's at right now.
Okay.
So just, to stay on topic, there are some questions that are coming up in the chat that are, I think, if I can just follow up, Rob, like, what's generally the time frame to send out descriptions? Folks are wanting to know why it has taken a while.
Well, because we are trying to gather as much evidence, as much a good description based on people who've actually witnessed a crime. So I could put out a general description of a male black, but that's not good enough, I don't think.
Sure.
So I want to get as specific as possible without, just generalizing and saying there's a male black out, stabbing folks. So that's why it takes a little while. We want to hone down the description to be accurate as possible.
Okay. And follow-up questions are, if he lives in an encampment, why has it not been cleared out?
That's not in our power, I would say.
Yeah,
not in
there's
the
someone
detective
from the
division.
Department of Family and Support Services, if they can pop in and.
I think we also have the homeless issue a little lower in the series of questions.
Yeah.
So might be able to, maybe they can address that then as well.
Yeah.
I kind of added that as a question, as a follow-up in that one. Since there's a lot of questions, I'm going to try to move quickly through this so we don't lose too many things, but I think that individual stories are great. They kind of tell a bigger, they contribute to a bigger story. The shooting on South Wells, there's been different stories that have kind of gone on around about that. At this point in time, what can you share with us about what exactly happened? And, I know that the detectives are looking into it. Do we have more information about the vehicle or the individual that, did the shooting? And it sounds like it was a pretty horrific crime.
Yes, so with the murder on Wall Street, it appears that the victim was targeted by the shooters. And actually, we put out a seeking to locate with a description of the two vehicles that we believe were involved in the shooting. And one has a plate. We know the registered owner, it's a female from the suburbs. But right now, the only problem we have is we don't know a motive as to why he was targeted. We know he was targeted because we see the cars in his around his house when we backtracked the vehicles through our ATC, our area technical center. They were able to track the cars, and at some point earlier in the day, those cars were actually spotted around the victim's house. So victim is targeted. We don't know why. He's got no records that we can find. So that's what we're trying to nail down. We've been trying to contact a family just to see if maybe they have a reason, if there's anything going on that we just aren't aware of right now.
Okay. I'm going to jump over to the shooting that happened, and there's also a comment in the chat that the shooting that happened on Printers Row about a week and a half or so ago, whatever, recently, and then also the recent stabbing that happened outside or potentially related to some activity at Caribbean Jerk Palace. What I wanted to kind of say is that I've been in the South Loop, living in South Loop for over 17 years. but I've actually been in the South Loop for a lot longer than that. And I have a pretty strong, solid appreciation for the history of our neighborhood. And to modern history, we've never had a shooting happening on Printers Row, which is kind of what is very concerning to the people who live here. And I would imagine it's quite concerning to the people who chose to move, who continue to choose to move here, because they sense a community that's here and a level of safety and a comfort zone. Walking back from downtown, for example, where people are a little bit on guard and they cross Ida B. Wells, and by the time they get to, you know, Harrison, they have this sense of, you know, I'm in my neighborhood. There's a sense of safety based on our history. That safety is now, you know, violated and relatively gone. So there, with the shooting, when I was listening into the public safety meeting Monday, where business owners on the street and buildings that had video cameras of the incident on the street, all have said that nobody from CPD or the detectives have done anything to reach out to them to get those videos and to get that image so that they can actually do their job to kind of protect the area, which kind of makes people feel that there's a lack of a commitment by detectives and by the CPD potentially, that the history of our neighborhood, the people who live here, the example, as I like to give, that if that gun were pointed, you know, 3 feet to the left or so, could have either been hitting someone sitting outdoors, or maybe 4 feet to the left, hitting our senior center, the senior housing that's part of Dearborn Park, that sits at the corner of Polk and Clark, right next to Dearborn Station. So we're kind of interested to hear where the commitment is to looking into that crime, understanding who was involved, why they were in the neighborhood, who attracted them to the neighborhood, and what next steps can actually legitimately be taken beyond any passionate feelings that people may have.
So as far as the shooting on Dearborn, we don't have a victim because there was 2 guys that were fighting over a bag. Somebody pulled out a gun and started shooting. He gets into a car and takes off, the shooter. ATC, so you guys can understand, have a ton of video that they had to get throughout the city or throughout our area. This is listed as a weapons violation or reckless discharge. Our homicides take priority over everything. And right now we have the full onslaught of ATC working on the stabbing from Wacker. Not to say that this crime isn't less important, but the detective will be following up. He will try to get video. You know, it's just that we have to prioritize our ATC and what they get and when they get it.
Yeah,
Let me ask a question.
Go
This
ahead.
is Scott from Roots. Is Angel on this phone yet? On this call yet? From Caribbean Jerk Palace?
Yes, she is.
Yes, I am on here.
This would be a great time for you to make a statement to the community.
Okay, I just got on literally just right now. As far as the incident that happened just recently, I'm very aware of what's going on, and I have hired security to stand outside at all times, there and the inside. We've also put in place a dress code for people that's coming in. So we have no hats, no tank tops, no short shorts and things like that. So I'm doing everything that's in my control to keep my area as safe as possible for the community.
Good. And let me be clear. I'm in a lot of neighborhoods across the city. We have restaurants all over this town, and you know, there's absolutely no place for the racism that you have been targeted with for your establishment. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
There's absolutely no place for the targeted racism that people have been targeting your establishment with. Okay. With that said, I think it's important that you are out there in the community right now talking to the people, because this issue started at your place. And all I can say is, as you sort of look around here, like, you know, there is, being in other neighborhoods around this city, we have issues with crime, and it all starts from the business itself. If you see something that is illegal or that looks illegal, it's on you, in my opinion, and also BACP. It's your job to report that, to call the police. And to me, that's the biggest thing that is missing in this situation, where I've been reading on all these neighborhood pages where people are trying to target your business, and I just don't think it's fair. But with that said, I do think that it's important that you are out there in this community and talking to people about what you're doing to prevent this situation from happening again.
Right. Not only do I have a business in this community, but I live in this community as well. But as far as, I mean, like, there was an incident there at my place of business, but I've been there for a year and a half, and over this year and a half, that's kind of like the only incident that's happened there. So things like this doesn't usually happen there. I mean, we're pretty good as far as watching the floor, you know, catching things before it even happens. Even if someone come in there that's drunk or anything, we don't even serve them, you know. So I mean, I feel like my staff is pretty good with that. And like I said, we're doing everything we can just to make sure that things like this don't happen. Well, everything that's in our control. And that's the same thing I was explaining to them at the meeting that we had the other day. I believe it's 637 Dearborn. I was explaining to, I forget his name, but I joined the team as far as the businesses and doing everything we can do to try to make the neighborhood safe that, you know, the businesses can do. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm here to help, and whatever you guys, you know, need me to do, I'm with you guys with it.
My point is,
I just want to jump in. I appreciate both of you guys being here. I did ask for OEMC to get calls for services to both businesses, and I do know that there have been calls for services from your business to OEMC, but if you guys can give us kind of some of those stats from OEMC.
Sure, yeah, this is Carla. And so I ran a few 2019, 1st of June 2019 through now for 744 South Dearborn. There have been a total of 59 calls for service for that location.
So 744 is which location?
Roots, that would be Roots Pizza, is that correct?
Okay, so how many calls and from when to when?
So it would be from June 1st, 2019 through now, 22nd June, yesterday.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean that they called from there. They just called for service for that location. So there were no calls in 2019. There were 42 calls for service in 2020, and then 17 calls for service so far in 2021.
And can you tell us what those call types were?
They vary. So hang on one second. For 744 South Dearborn, in 2020, they had like 11 burglar alarms, a parking violation, 7 disturbances, a couple, 2 EMS runs, 3 criminal damage to property, a check to well-being, a threatening suicide, 3 transfers to alternate response, which would be police reports. Let's see what else we have here. We have a threatening suicide, 1 criminal trespass, 5 music disturbances, and that was in 2020. In 2021, we have 3 burglar alarms, a community interaction with police, mental health call, 2 disturbances, 1 criminal trespass, and then they did have 6 calls for shots fired on the 5th of June, and 1 parking violation. That would be for 744.
Okay, and the other location?
That would be 733 South Dearborn.
Okay,
That was a total of 41 calls for service.
okay,
So in 2019, they had 1 call for service, that was a hold of alarm. In 2020, they had 1 transfer to 311. There were 19 calls for service in 2020. There were 3 batteries, 2 music disturbances, 2 regular disturbances, 3 calls for no police service, a parking violation, an assist the citizen, an EMS call, 1 burglar alarm. And then they had, they had a municipal ordinance violation. And then in 2021, a suspicious person and other mental health call for service, a deceptive practice, 3 thefts, 2 disturbances, 1 criminal trespass, a parking violation, 1 battery, 3 calls to non-emergency. And then they had, and this must have been the same incident in June, 3 calls for shots fired, 3 calls for a person with a gun, 3 theft reports, a couple transfers to alternate response. And there was a traffic stop at that location that came up. I don't know why it came up as a call for service, but.
yeah. Can you give us an idea of how many calls come from the businesses versus outside the businesses?
At this time, no, I cannot, but if that was needed, I could get it.
Okay,
If I had the phone number.
okay,
So Alderman King, let me just be upfront here. As a business owner with a liquor license, it is my responsibility. If something illegal is happening at my property, I need to refer that to the authorities, which we do. We also have full security crew on. So that is your job. If you have a establishment in Chicago, so you see something illegal, you go ahead and you call the authorities. And Angel, that would be my suggestion to you is I don't know whether or not that's happening or not from your establishment.
Yes, of course that's happening. That it happened that day. Of course, that's the first thing they're gonna do is call the police. They would not call the police. So that's the protocol there. We even have security guard. They will call the police. So yes, that happens. That they know to call the police. They call them right away before even anything breaks off. Before if they even think something is gonna happen, they call the police.
And that's
Yes, that happens.
Mr.
we don't-
Weiner
Yeah,
and
you can-
Ms. McDonald, actually, I had this as a section later to be discussed because there's other crimes and there are other questions that we actually listed that might be related to police levels and to some of the questions and issues that you're raising. So if you would just, if Mr. Butler would put the questions back up, you'll see that there's a time for you guys to speak to this. I don't want to interrupt you, but I kind of think that there's the purpose of our discussion, or at least at this stage, was to looking at the actual crime itself that we were using as an example of a variety of crimes that have been happening in the area as a whole. And I'm personally 100% confident that both of you invested in our neighborhood because of the people who live here potentially, and or the people who you want to bring here. So that is all I'm going to say about that. But I did want to impart an appreciation for everybody on the call. And as the both of you are new, maybe, Ms. McDonald's kind of part of our neighborhood. So I'm excited to hear that because I would imagine she also would want to keep our neighborhood safe because she lives here.
Of course.
What I'd like to kind of remind you is that this is the first time that we've had a significant change. And obviously, Mr. Weiner, we hear that you're passionate about letting the CPD take care of policing for your business and responding to the calls. That said, I kind of want to go back to confirming how the police will be looking at the individuals who were there, who perhaps, Ms. McDonald had no control over, so that we can kind of prevent and discourage people from coming here. Because from our perspective, the fewer crimes that there's any penalty for, the more crime that your business, Mr. Weiner, is going to attract, especially since you had a gunshot in your windows, or it will detract at least the people who live in the neighborhood, which is probably not your primary interest. So if we can kind of understand what the police department is doing for the community and also hear what the city leadership's doing, there is a time we're going to be asking questions about noise levels there is a point in time where we're going to be looking on this agenda that's going to be asking about the number of people who are on the street and the safety and security outside of certain businesses, and that would be a great time for you guys to chat.
Oh, well, let me be
no.
let me be clear.
Hold on,
though.
Scott. Let's get the detectives to answer the specific questions about that particular crime and kind of bring us up to date on that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're talking about the shooting at 700 Dearborn, 723 South Dearborn, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so again, that was two guys. We don't know who they are, fighting over a bag. One guy pulls out a gun and starts shooting in the air. I don't know if he did it to scare the other guy off. Witnesses described the offender with the gun, wearing a red shirt, black braids, red Nike shoes, and he gets into a black car, a black Nissan Altima, which we have a plate on. We tracked down the plate. The female doesn't cooperate with us. She doesn't fit the description, so I can't bring her in for questioning. I did ask her if she knew who was driving her car. She has, nobody drives her car but her. So that's where we're at with that. Again, I think somebody brought up questions about gathering video in the area, which is important. But like I said before, I had to prioritize ATCs as a resource, and homicides throughout our area have to take precedence over something like this. Not to say that it won't be done. It's just, it may take some time.
I consider Printers Row to be symbolic of the initial development and evolution of the entire South Loop neighborhood. Without it, you've got a completely different neighborhood. So that said, it's more of a symbol that you guys may want to commit resources if you can. I understand the other thing, and perhaps there's questions down below where we're asking about staffing levels, where perhaps we may have the wrong impression that maybe we have insufficient staffing levels, and maybe we need to push a little bit more to get CPD to commit more people to our area, since the area no longer is a small community, and the numbers of people who move here and the number of developments that are coming in might help encourage, and perhaps we can get more feet on the ground with the police so that they can kind of keep an eye on this. Your message that a shooting is not a big deal for anyone to follow up on is not one that most of the people on this phone call probably feel very good about.
It's not that it's not important, sir. I'm not telling you that. I'm just talking about ATC, our video guys. Okay. Of course, every shooting in the city is important to us, and that's why we investigate it. I can't speak to staffing issues because that's well above my pay grade.
Okay.
All I can say is, I don't want you to believe that I don't think every shooting is important. It is.
Okay.
You just have to understand that I had to investigate homicides. You know,
that's just our first shooting in our 40-year history. So
I get it.
That's an important.
And believe me, I will.
I kind of made a general statement.
Detective to go
now,
out there if he has to do it himself.
I made an initial statement that said we now have a crime on virtually every one of our streets, which is a bad anecdote, and something I don't want to hear on any streets. I never want to say every street of Chicago, but we certainly have virtually a crime on almost every single one of our streets now. That one, at least that type of crime, is something none of us in the area probably.
Let me jump in here, and I'm not trying to derail this.
I actually we only have about less than like 45 minutes left, and there's other crimes. If I can jump, Alderman, to the 600 South Wabash one, the break-in, the shooting, and the case that was a chase that one Saturday night.
I would say let Captain Mannion or someone talk about the staffing and just
I think we need to talk about foot patrol, because quite frankly, being in other neighborhoods here around Chicago, in these neighborhoods, you know, hearing that a shooting in a residential and commercial district isn't as important. I mean, that's concerning from our police officers. And I apologize to anyone who thinks that bringing up racism was offensive, but quite frankly, I just want the problem solved. And to me, solving the problem means that the businesses need to be proactive with calling police, and the police need to be proactive with being on the streets. And And that to me is the biggest issue that we have here, is that we're looking at being reactive here and looking at murders or shootings, and we're not looking in a great way at being proactive, which has been foot patrols in the other neighborhoods, in my experience.
And that was one of the things we talked about up front, which is the idea of how can we come up with something proactive with solutions that, are measurable and documentable versus people being passionate about different issues. And I prefer keeping the conversation specifically focused on these specific, ranges of crimes, as opposed to bringing up social issues in the middle of them, because that's a completely different set of conversations. And I'm sure we can all talk about those in another meeting.
So Captain, can you weigh in, please?
Good evening, everyone. As far as staffing, we don't control how many people in the first district. That we have people in the first district, which goes from 31st Street to the river. And basically we'll say the expressway to the lake. We have to figure out with those people how to utilize them best. One thing I'm taking from this conversation, we have increased the patrol there and focus attention, even with the little things such as parking. During COVID, I'm kind of sick of saying that, but during COVID, when we're dealing with parking issues and stores are trying to survive, people trying to eat. But now in the last couple of weeks, working even with a couple of aldermen's offices, dealing with it and kind of having a zero tolerance regarding parking, because we sometimes feel that the illegal parking can lead to other things. So in the downtown area, and we want to stress that to both business owners that are on here now, I know that you tell your patrons that be careful where you park, because you will get towed and ticketed. We appreciate you being proactive with that, because we don't want them buying food and then having a negative experience. But that is, especially along Dearborn, it is a stretch now that we're focusing on. One of the things we're also doing is with the bike officers. The first district doesn't have bike officers per se, but we work closely. I don't want to get too jargon specific it's a critical incident response team. We call them CERT, and they're the ones that have the bike officers. We work hand in hand with them, but I'm definitely going to be reaching out to them to try to have that be a quadrant that the bike officers truly focus on during their patrols, because they focus in the central business district for the most part. They're also the ones that are responsible for all the protests and the marches and the like. So when they're not on one of those things, which there's dozens every day, they do help out the first district and the 18th district, which is north of the river. But I'm going to work with their command staff to try to get more focused attention, especially with the bikes, because I think they're invaluable for not only presence, but enforcement as well.
So, yeah, I appreciate that, because I'm hearing, about the foot patrol. I think bike, foot would be good. And can you take a second to tell us about our new commander? Did she join us? I'm not sure.
Yes, she might be able to hear us. She was having no electricity first, and then where she was at, and she was on another computer. So Commander Zuber, can you hear us? I know she logged in, she was on, but Patricia Zuber, otherwise known as Trish, otherwise known as Commander Zuber, she's been a fixture in the first district for some years now. She led the watch on second watch, which is the day shift. Her background is very diverse, being the fact that she's worked in patrol, she's worked in the detective division, she's worked in our crime prevention information center, which is our fusion center. CPIC is the acronym. She's worked in her deployment operations center. The last two, they focus on strategy. They focus on basically dots on the map. So some of the questions you're asking now, that's one of the things that she focused on, is deployment of personnel, trying to figure out where crime is going to happen. So I've known her for a long time. I've worked with her the last year and a half. I think she's a phenomenal choice. She's truly, she's out there. She is kind of a visionary forefront, especially being a leader, especially one of the women in leadership within the Chicago Police Department. But she's personable, but she is also holds officers accountable. I've seen that firsthand as the role of captain. She did a very good job, not only working her watch, But based on filling in on all the other watches, this is an individual that took it upon herself to go out to the protest, took it upon herself to go out to a lot of the large events just to learn more. And this was 2 years ago. And then I've seen her on different events. Then when I got assigned to the first district, we became close, we became friends. But very, very smart woman. She's very excited. She does have ideas. And I'm sure she already has her notepad filled with notes from listening to this.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, just in case, if you'll pass those suggestions and concerns along to her, and we obviously look forward to working with her.
Got my
I
notes.
just will say as a point of privilege that I thought Commander Alderden was also an excellent commander, and as
Thank you.
you as a second Captain Mannion as well, or a great team, and I'm glad you'll still be in the first district as captain,
Yes.
and we will welcome Commander Zuber. But Rob, go ahead. I know you've got a long list of things. Let's try and get through some of them a little more quickly, but we
Okay.
still want substance. Go ahead.
Yeah, so can we just kind of take those final crimes collectively and just a general statement? I think that everyone's aware that we have a high volume of carjackings and we have the different things that have happened on Lakeshore Drive. And I kind of extracted out separately the noise associated with the motorcycles and the vehicles that we're hearing. So there's a little bit lower on that. So I'm not really looking for Lakeshore Drive from that perspective. What I was trying to show is paint the picture that there's a number of crimes that are happening. Everyone's extremely aware of those crimes. We certainly have come out of a year where everything was quiet. We had different things and was quiet, not by any of our own choices, but when we get back into things, then all of a sudden we hear everything that's going on. It would be good to know that CPD or the detectives are kind of taking a proactive strategy, looking at the individual crimes, but how do we find where the source of where the people are coming from and address the core issue, which might be outside, obviously, the hands of CPD, but maybe you can give our aldermen some insights about the people that are doing this so we can create programs to help change that down the road. That's a bigger picture, but I just kind of wanted to give that kind of an appreciation from a high level that the South Loop has experienced a number of crimes and a number of shootings, stabbings, carjackings, over the last year that we have not truly sensed before. And I really think that the people who are down here that moved here from only having a couple thousand people to now almost 30, whatever, close to 21 to 30,000, whatever the number is, how you count it. People just want to feel safe in their homes. They want to know that, that the police are doing their jobs, that the prosecutors are able to prosecute instead of, creating legal precedent to let people off the hook. And that's the general statement that I'm going to make about that. Looking at a general thing that I received from someone was like looking at and also hearing from the other day, the number of calls that come into 911 and the numbers that actually get responded to are two completely different numbers. And I think that there's a lot of people who feel that 911 is not fully responsive. It's not totally an answer for today, but it's certainly something for the radar to address. I'm kind of thinking we can jump if you have any statement on that. Anybody real quick, or should we just jump to more of the security issues?
So can we talk about the car vehicular jackings for a second and what we're doing about them proactively? Captain, Sergeant Perez, what kind of
And I will be right back.
follow-up has been?
As far as carjackings go, I work homicide. Carjackings are a separate department, but I know that they have a team of detectives dedicated to carjackings here at the area, and they also have a citywide team that's dedicated to carjackings. I can't speak as to how they run their investigations, but I know that the city has put in a lot of personnel on carjackings, not only detectives, but police officers from around the city that are working on the carjackings, including the ones here in the first district.
So, ma'am, over here at OEMC, we actually house and facilitate and help to coordinate the city carjacking task force along with Chief of Detectives Denahan. There's a dedicated lieutenant over here at the OEMC, along with several police officers and sergeants, and they run a citywide carjacking task force where we're able to utilize all of the resources over here at OEMC, the camera network, the license plate reader network, 911 call take, all the 911 calls that come in, and all the radio traffic that goes through our operations center. So our operations center actually houses a citywide task force, which since its activation a few months ago has shown successes in terms of being able to interdict happen. So it's definitely something we're looking at from a citywide perspective here at OEMC. Police department coordinating those efforts.
We get additional cameras, or how many do we have down here?
In your particular ward?
4th Ward.
Oh, I don't have the numbers per ward.
4th Ward North, just our North Ward zone. Like, well, I would like to see what we have, north of Cermak, to downtown, but how many cameras we have that the police use for responding to crime versus the police use to respond to tickets for safety, for public safety.
I don't think you have to be ward specific, but if you can just give a general idea of where the cameras are located in the ward. I know there's, excuse me, not in the ward, but in the South Loop. And then I know there's some that are scheduled to come online as well.
Right, Alderman. We've got, in terms of the South Loop, obviously the main corridors along Roosevelt Road, by the transit nodes. So talking, red line stops. We have the federated camera system with CTA. All the major thoroughfares by McCormick Place, along State Street. There's also cameras set up. But the specific number I don't have for you, but I can tell you that we do have a robust camera network. Also, we allow people through our Smart 911, folks who register can actually register, and if they have Ring doorbell cameras or personal cameras that they want to opt in and allow us to see. So then if a crime happens in their area, then the police department and detectives will be able to access their Ring cameras to help solve those crimes as part of our Smart 911 initiative.
I think it might be a good idea to have a separate conversation. I think about the number of cameras that we have as a city, what the strategy is and the purpose of our cameras, how many we have, and how police get deployed in response to crimes that they may see there. And there's certainly other places in the, there's probably other places in the country, certainly other places outside the US that we can look to for best practices that maybe we would want to adopt as a city for public safety, where the cities truly use and have cameras on each street and have, rooms of people, just data, cameras, walls of it, where they're looking at crimes and deploying immediately the police in order to deter crimes that happen. But I think that might be an interesting conversation to have at another time, because it sounds like our cameras are, well, they're robust, but they're potentially missing some things.
We're always open to looking at best practices and better ways to do things. So.
Yeah. I mentioned to Alderman Cicho Lopez on Monday that I had a chance to see what they do in Mexico City, and I would love to do a trip. And I'm sure that the people of Mexico City would be happy to show us exactly how they use their cameras in different stations to be able to deploy police for public safety versus generating tickets. Security expectations for this would be a great time for us to kind of chat again with Ms. McDonald and Mr. Weiner, because they can probably give us a sense of a little bit more to talk about, like what they're doing to try to control the numbers of people who are outside their businesses, creating lines. I've heard from people that, the numbers of people with the combination of the outdoor patio seating with people standing out in lines to kind of get in. And the people have noticed that there is like someone working the door to keep things safe, but people can't pass through, and that's a safety risk for people based on the numbers of people who are kind of standing and loitering around waiting to get in. So I kind of thought this might be a chance for Ms. McDonald to talk about that. But actually, Roots, the extended patio and Roots creates also sometimes a traffic issue where people are standing around. It's not nearly as bad. The thing that causes a problem for Caribbean Jerk Palace is the fact that they have that outdoor pergola, and literally nobody can walk through. And I've walked through, and I've been looked at by the security guy, like, what am I doing walking through? And I'm just simply walking home. So
You're saying, you're saying walking through the pergola itself, or are you saying walking
No.
past on the sidewalk?
on the sidewalk between people standing outside your business and people, in to the pergola, there's literally probably, I would say, about 5 feet or 5 feet, right? So literally there's a safety issue. So the question that I was kind of asking, I don't know if you would know it, or actually with some of the people who are on the call would understand or know it, but essentially if we can look at how are the sidewalk cafes permits being licensed? And
Okay, so
yeah.
go ahead. Well, the city of Chicago has come out because I guess someone put a complaint in about that. I'm not sure who or what not, but they came out and they measured everything, and literally everything was fine. It was up to part where it's supposed to be, and I didn't receive a ticket. And I actually I can give you the document showing that I didn't receive a ticket. So all of that stuff has to be set up correctly, because he didn't give me a ticket and tell me to change anything about it. He said he did get a call.
Were they looking at patrons standing outside your business when they did the measurement?
No, he just measured.
Measure when it wasn't open. So that's my concern, is that there's a safety issue going on over there as people are kind of like trying to make their way through. We have families in the neighborhood, and we got people enjoying themselves, and that's a big concern as to whether or not we should be giving out.
Rob, let her finish.
Sorry.
Okay, so as far as, well, we know that we're coming out of a pandemic, so we had a capacity level. I own 4 restaurants in the city of Chicago, and all of my restaurants are really, they're in high demand. So all of them kind of have a line. So wherever we open up, people tend to come. So when I hired a security initially, to try to keep the traffic down and try to, tell people, hey, go to your cars or whatever the case may be at that particular time. Now, as far as you're saying that when you tried to walk past, what I'm assuming that it was probably a line outside or something when you were trying to walk past. So the security guard if it's a single foul line outside, there's still a problem with them standing outside, or do you not want anyone standing outside at all?
People don't stand idle in a single line together, body to body to body. So they kind of lounge through that space. They stand next to each other. They crowd the area quite a bit. I'm personally certain that you have done a tremendously good deed for the wine shop, because your patrons are going there first and then coming to you. So you're not necessarily a bad thing for business, depending on someone's perspective, but there is a safety issue, I think, where people, because your hours are not consistent and how it's marketed and promoted that people discover it, they're standing outside. And I don't think, and that's perfectly fine, but I'm hearing the question is, if people are standing outside, perhaps we should not be giving an outdoor seating license, because there is a safety risk. So I was kind of asking the folks who are part of the city, have they looked at that as they look at licensing? And to the secondary, which Roots has a similar but different issue. They have a little bit wider space than you guys, and they don't stand directly that much out there, but on the weekends, there's some people who do. So I think that people are asking me to ask the question, how do we go about licensing sidewalk cafes?
So the thing is, before I came here, there was Hackney's was here, and they had a sidewalk cafe. So what I did was continue the permit and transferred everything over to Caribbean Jerk Palace. So I would think it would be the same thing. It wouldn't be anything different. I mean, what would be the difference between me and Hackney's?
They were less popular.
So let's talk more about the solution. So if there's a line, how can we make sure that the line is, met in an orderly fashion? I know you said you're going to have security now. Is there a way that they can also manage the line so that it's more user-friendly, let's just say?
Yes, Alderman. So hold on 1 second.
Ms. Starks, go ahead.
Could I just interject really quick? I will note that BACP has been out to the location of the Caribbean Jerk Palace location and has cited them repeatedly for violations related to the Sidewalk Cafe. And there are actually currently some citations pending at the Department of Administrative Hearings. I'm sorry that I was sort of a late addition to this meeting, so I wasn't able to gather the full details of that. But I do know that on May 7th of this year, they were fined $1,000 for violations related to the Sidewalk Cafe, not being in compliance with the provisions in the plan for that.
On May 7th, I don't even believe we were open.
And no, that's when you were the hearing was at the Department of Administrative Hearings. And there were additional
I'm sorry, you went out.
There were additional.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, you guys are delayed. She's talking now. So hold on a sec. Go ahead.
The May 7th date was when there was a hearing at the Department of Administrative Hearings, where an order was issued with a fine of $1,000 and $40 in court costs. And additionally, there were 2 other dates when fines were assessed related to the outdoor Sidewalk Cafe. And there are additional violations that were issued on June 6th that haven't registered in my system yet, so I wasn't able to look at those, but they are also related to the Sidewalk Cafe and compliance with the plan. So there do appear to be some issues related to that, and Mr. Hard is correct in that the business is responsible to make sure that that they take care of crowd control, but maybe even more importantly, we do have people with mobility issues, and we need to keep those sidewalks, a certain amount of distance, sidewalks clear so that people who have issues can get through. So I do think that there are some concerns there that maybe Ms. McDonald and I could speak to and try to get addressed. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, that was perfect. Thank you.
That sounds good. I know there's also been, we can pick up on some of the concerns, I think, with Caribbean Jerk and Roots, with a smaller meeting to address some of those issues, I think. And Ms. Starks, if you and Ms. McDonald can talk as well offline, we can connect you guys through email. Well, it sounds like you're already connected. So yes.
Great.
Okay.
Mr. Butler, can you see the agenda again, the questions? Sorry, I forgot where I left off. Thank you. Oh.
So we're coming up on an hour and a half. So I want to also get to other questions if folks have them. But Rob, if you can look at maybe 1 or 2 on the list, and then we can get.
Yeah, I think that everybody's probably pretty sensitive to the motorcycle noise and that's going on in the vehicles that are extremely loud. I know that Alderman King, you and Alderman Cicho Lopez and Alderman Dowell and other folks have done your diligence to make this an ordinance with some teeth. And the real question is, we're still hearing the noise. There's chatter about the fact that, CPD is not writing or pulling people aren't being pulled over, or they're not pulling over. Do we know how many tickets we've given out? How much has been collected in that process? What's happening with all the noise that's kind of going on Clark and Roosevelt, Michigan, Lakeshore Drive, and so on? And we hear sirens all night long in our neighborhood now.
Yeah. So is that a detective, an office captain?
Alderman, this is Seamus. I could do it.
Okay.
It's thankfully with the Alderman's support with the ordinance that passed, so we could actually, like you said, have some teeth. We're looking forward to try to do that. Our tactical team, led under the direction of Lieutenant Len Soshi, they've had some success curbing. Was a motorcycle, is more the dirt bike, which is more of an issue from some capacity, and they were able to impound the vehicle. I don't have the exact numbers for that, for the traffic. One of the challenges that we've had from day one with that is they don't most of them do not stop for us when we put our lights on to try to stop them. Our best success is when we pull up on them when they're parked, when they're on their vehicle or their motorcycle or dirt bike or ATV, they're already sitting on it, and we were able to get them before they take off. Once they put the motorcycle in gear and we try to stop them, we cannot pursue. For our pursuit policy, we're not allowed to go after them. They all have GoPros on them. A lot of them are taunting us. They give us the finger. They're trying to antagonize us to chase after them. That's the biggest challenge we have, is just trying to actually stop them, because once they take off for us for traffic, because everything they're doing at that point is traffic related, the lack of being able to pursue them limits us. That's why we do have a couple of missions coming up, and part of it is trying to go to where their hotspots are and try to get them before they're able to take off.
So, Captain, what's the difference between the idea that we have the red light cameras without anybody pulling anyone over, takes the picture of a license plate, sends somebody $100 or whatever it may be, and they have their fine, while you guys have cameras on your vehicles? You can certainly have, I'm assuming you have audio and you can see license plates. Are you not allowed to go ahead and send them the minimum $5,000 fine per the ordinance and let them defend themselves, in traffic court?
That is correct, based on how.
Somebody send you this.
Can everyone mute if they're not speaking, please?
To answer that question, you are correct. If we see it for all traffic, the best way to look at it is the red light cameras. I don't view that as part of, say, the Chicago Police Department. What we can do is what we're allowed to do. And in regards to this, it's an on-view event. If we see it and we're able to curb them, stop them, cite them, we will. But as it's currently written, no, we do not use body-worn camera or use in-car camera and mail a ticket from the administrative side. We do not.
Okay. Well, that's going to tell me that we basically have an ordinance that has had no citations, but let's jump.
That's not true. And I'm going to cut you off because that's not true.
Okay.
So the laughter, I don't find any of it funny. And
no.
We no, but you're laughing when you said that.
It's a few weeks old.
That success. Exactly. The ordinance is only a few weeks old. And like I said, the alderman took tremendous time to write it the right way.
Right.
And they should be commended for how they wrote it, because there's always loopholes. And they did a great job giving us some tools.
Right.
The next step is taking those tools and, as we said before, using strategy, because I don't want to just try to stop someone and they take off, because that could cause another issue when they're driving fast, regardless of any traffic law. So if we have a more strategic move and we use our tactical team as a team, not as an individual officer, and we utilize using the CERT people, utilizing even the state police to use those missions to try to corral them before they could take off. So we do have success. We've had success, and our tactical team has impounded motorcycles and dirt bikes already.
That's good to know. And on that note, I just want to shout out Alderman Dow, just because she showed a lot of leadership in getting that ordinance passed. So just want to, and I'm glad to hear, Captain, that there has been that didn't go in vain, that there has been consequences for that. And what I'm hearing is, that there continues to be disturbances. And so how do you see kind of that going in the future? Do you think any of those tickets or compound has deterred folks? Have you seen any results from that? What are we looking at? I know at one point there was kind of a mission for that as well. Are we still seeing that? I know COVID kind of took precedence. Can you just give us an outlook on where that where we're going from here?
Sure. I just had a conversation with Commander Stevens from the 18th district, which I always say is just north of River, because we are putting together a couple of joint missions because they have very similar issues with the dirt bikes, the ATVs, the motorcycles. We want to work with the state police to help us, our CPD, our traffic side, the traffic section, And again, to work together to try to actually have an impact. Our tactical lieutenant, like I said, Len Zoshi, this is one of his little issues that really bother him, besides all the violence. But this is one, especially on the weekends, that his crew is beginning to truly target and try to put together a plan. But it's definitely on the first district's radar. And now that we have the ordinance, which is only, it went into effect June 7th, the entire CPD pretty soon will be given kind of a training bulletin on it. But in our district, we know about it. We stress it with our roll calls and try to, like I said, there's a couple hot spots where they meet up, and that's where we are targeting. So it's more, excuse the cliche, but fish in a barrel, as opposed to, I would try to stop them when they're already stopped. We have to wait for them to be on the motorcycle to make sure we could ride them. But as opposed to just going on Michigan Avenue, once we start, I hope that once we start impounding, and for those that are watching and listening, there's a big difference between an impound and a tow. And the best way to look at it is financial. A lot of people don't even mind getting a ticket. A lot of them don't mind being towed. Impound is where there's teeth. Impound is where it truly is in the pocketbook and with the tickets. So since it started June 7th, and now with there's definitely more traffic downtown. Since Chicago is reopening, it's helped to some capacity. It's more anecdotal evidence at this point. But when there was no traffic downtown, it was basically a playpen for them. Now that traffic is, I'm sure most of you have had traffic issues, that could be a good thing because they can't get around as much. It's no longer a straightaway. Now they actually have to stop and adhere to some of the rules of the road.
Okay, and
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you for that. Hey, Rob, I'm going to let a couple of folks raise their hand. If we
Okay.
didn't get to an issue that you guys wanted to ask, we've got, it's almost 6:30. We started a little bit late, so I'm going to add a little more time for that. But are there questions that panelists have that perhaps have not been answered? So I will go just as I see people's hands raised, and we're asking that you show your camera so we can all be transparent here. But Ms. Jerkasek, I'm sure I butchered that. And then Mr. Watson.
I don't know. I'm trying to start my, here we go. Okay. Good evening. I guess my question, and from my neighbors who've asked me to ask questions, has been, we all feel very strongly that there needs to be a constant and continuing police presence. And I live at Michigan and 11th Street on throughout the day, throughout the weekends, to show that, if nothing else, that this crime issue is being taken seriously. Right now, it seems like it's all reactive. So an event happens and then there are police. But it seems to all of us that there needs to be, as much as possible, a stronger police presence. Thank you very much.
Captain, can you speak to that? I know you touched on it a little earlier.
Nope. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that in Michigan 11th, especially on the weekends, we do have, there is a lot of patrol around there. You may not necessarily see it. Some of it could be in the tactical positioning. Some of it's actually covert, but that area, especially by some of the hotels, and we're working with the hotels to help them, because one in particular is trying to really increase their security, and we're trying to walk them through it because they had some issues trying to get the right security. But we're working with that, the property owner is he's trying, and the one security company he had wasn't working out too well, so he's getting another one. But I know on the weekend, Michigan 11th has been picked up a little bit with just activity with people, and we've had people at the skate. We had officers basically always by the skate park, and then we'll go across the street back and forth. But on the weekends specifically, I know that we do have the presence there. But I am writing notes as well.
All right, we appreciate that. And if the commander is on or shows up, let us know. We'll introduce her as well. Go ahead, Mr. Watson.
Hi, so thank you, Alderwoman. So I've been here 25 years in the South Loop. I've seen a lot of changes. I'm not one of these people that believe that we should defund the police. They have a difficult job. That being said, some of the issues have started because the police sometimes don't police themselves. And that has led to some issues where people are acting out. If these people are at Roosevelt Road, and there's a squad car there almost every weekend now, nothing's being done. When they're at that gas station, I've seen them, my daughter's taking pictures from her window. There are 30, 40, 50 vehicles sitting there. So if we're gonna hold one business accountable, every business should be held accountable. The police should be held accountable. We ourselves should be held accountable. And if the police can't do certain things, granted, maybe their hands are tied, whatever the reason is, explain to me what a neighborhood watch is going to do. I'm afraid that we're going to have vigilantes targeting people, because at the last meeting, Alderwoman, the last spokesperson for this group said that we all know, and this is verbatim, who should not be in this neighborhood. That's a problem for me. That sounds like racism. That sounds like they're going to target race instead of targeting the behavior. We've seen this on the news. We remember Trayvon Martin. We remember the young man who was bird watching. What's going to stop people who are afraid already from acting out because someone doesn't look exactly what they consider a person for this neighborhood? I'm not going to get into all the personal things about the jerk chicken place. I've never been there. I've been to Hackney's. No one has complained about any of the other people with outside dining. And the dining increased because of COVID. We want them to have a business. You don't want boarded up businesses down here. I wish my particular part of South Loop had better restaurants. We don't. I've been to the Root one time. I enjoyed the Root. I enjoyed the establishment. The people who worked there were great. Was there a line? There were about 8 people sitting down in line to get in there. And this was a Saturday night. It was packed in there. I get it. You want to go to sleep at night. I'd like to go to sleep at night as well. So I left around 11 o'clock. I don't live in that particular part. I used to. If we're going to hold people accountable, please stop making it look like race. I know people do not like to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. But some of the things that you're saying, because they weren't popular, well, damn it, she wants her restaurant to be popular. She wants to have people come to her restaurant. How does she control what type of people come to her restaurant? That is the police job to stop certain people from acting out, or the city's job if they're going to fine her for not following whatever rules they're supposed to follow. But please, let's not run people out of business and have boarded up places around here. We can do better than this. Stop making everything seem as if it's a personal vendetta because you are afraid of certain things. Change is a good thing. Do I want the violence that's happening here? Of course I don't. But I'm an African-American man with a wife and a daughter. Do not attack my children, my wife, because you are afraid of something and you're calling the police on somebody because they don't look like they should be in your neighborhood. That scares me. At least the police does something that I don't like or anyone doesn't like. There's a mechanism to file a complaint. Who do we file a complaint against with a neighborhood watch that might be a little overzealous and maybe not doing things the way they should? So that's my statement. Thank you very much.
Oh, I appreciate that, Mr. Watson. Several things were in there. I will try and unpack a couple of them. One, I would say there is a balance, I think. So I do think that businesses are responsible for their patrons. I also think that we shouldn't target businesses because of race or single them out. And so I think what we should do in terms of that is, I know we're going to have a smaller meeting, but we do. I think there's some things Ms. McDonald has said for her business that she's doing. Applaud her for that. The Roots owner, Mr. Weiner, that he's doing as well. I agree. We want great businesses in our community. And I think there has to be a balance. I think COVID also brought some things. So I will just say that the sidewalk issue has been an issue all over, that restaurants all over, meaning I've got from Hyde Park, Brownsville, South Loop, everyone has kind of skirted those issues because of COVID. We allowed, more room on the sidewalks. We allowed, so now we're kind of trying to get back to normal and get back to business as usual. I appreciate the security that's there. That would have been a next step that I would ask for. And now I would just ask, to watch the line and try and figure out how we can coexist between having a great business with lines. I've also seen them, lots of lines in other neighborhoods, Fulton Market, everywhere you go, there's lines. They coexist with the communities that live there. So we have to learn how to balance that. And I think that's an issue that the businesses have to deal with and make sure that as they look outside, that their lines are not, interfering with people coming through, and that at the same time, people who live there can also appreciate that there are lines, and make sure that if there are bigger issues that we address those, but also to maybe be more accepting of smaller issues. I know you also mentioned about the business, the Amoco on Roosevelt, Captain, he was talking about the car that's just sitting there. I'd like to at least have you take note of that. I don't know that there's, I can assume what your answer is, but if you'd like to address that, Captain.
No, I think the answer is actually better because that was part of the downtown deployment, that location. And it was done through a citywide initiative. Districts would send cars, and that was one of the posts. Just recently, it just switched over, and when you see the car there now, it is actually assigned to the first district, which I actually like better because there's always this disconnect because they weren't part of the first district. So whatever they did or didn't do is a reflection not only on CPD as the whole, but then specifically the first district, because I do not expect anyone to understand ward boundaries, district boundaries, special operations unit, details. So it's the police. Now it is the first district. So it's there at night, and we've kind of tweaked the mission, and they won't just be sitting there anymore. Part of their role now is to actually get out of the car, is to do a foot patrol, to go back in the car, drive around. They still have a specific area, specific focus, but there's different ways of making their presence felt. So that just switched over this month. So I do like that better because now it's on us.
Right. And I guess I would like to close with just, addressing kind of the neighborhood watch piece. In all of our communities, we encourage the community to be involved, to know your neighbors, to understand, how to communicate with each other. I do understand what Mr. Watson was referring to. We don't want vigilantes. We don't want, targeting people just because you don't know them. We do want you to react to specific issues that are criminal in nature, obviously, but not just people you don't recognize. The streets of Chicago are free to all taxpayers. And those that aren't, honestly. And so we can't, kind of form a type of discrimination based on who you know and who you don't. I do think you do need to get to know your neighbors because I think coming together as a community is one of the best forms of safety, but I don't think that we should, do the police's job for them. I think, and I also don't think we should profile people who don't necessarily live in our community or look like us. So, or excuse me, I shouldn't say us, but you know what I meant. And so I just want to caution that. Like I said, I really encourage communities to come together, to have phone trees, to know each other, to communicate. I think that provides for a safe community. I do discourage, profiling someone who you don't know in the community who's not doing anything wrong. And so to that end, I certainly understand where Mr. Watson is coming from. I see one more hand, Ms. Casada. We're gonna leave with your final question.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. I just want to address that. I have noticed before COVID that Bar Louie the racial proportions seem to change after, say, I don't know, like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And we have never, ever had any disturbances that I know of coming out of Bar Louie. So for somebody to say that this, we're just like being racist is, in my opinion, so insulting.
Yeah. Well, I've seen some stuff in the chat, and there possibly are some racial overtones. I don't think that, bringing up issues of lines that may impact people, being concerned about shootings at businesses are racial at all. But I certainly have seen some mix of racial overtones. I think it's individuals, as my mother say, are so nuanced. It's all nuanced. But I want to stay focused. I want to make sure that the businesses are doing what they need to do to make sure that they are safe. I agree that the businesses are responsible for their customers, for people who come in and come out. And like I said, I appreciate the security added at both Roots and the Caribbean Jerk Place. And I also want to make sure that the lines are orderly, that they make sure that, people who are also passing by can get by. And I think they're not mutually exclusive. I think we can do both. So I appreciate your comment, Ms. Casada. And I think there's been a combination of both, but I think that was good that you pointed out that, because Bar Louie has been there for, I don't know how many years, gosh, at least probably 25 years or so. With that note, I think I want to thank all of our guests and our panelists. I did put in the chat that we could have a smaller meeting just talking about the restaurants that we've been talking about today. Again, I appreciate the owners both being here, both listening, taking notes, hearing from all of you. I also appreciate that the panelists that were here from the police department, from OEMC, from the Department of Family and Support Services. Hopefully I didn't forget anybody. Also appreciate the questions, Rob. Very hard questions sometimes, but sometimes we've got to get right at issues in order to try and do a better job in solving them. Captain, I appreciate that you will take the notes back to our new commander, Commander Patricia Zuber. Honestly, I can't say that I'm not happy to see a female commander, but it also sounds like, I shouldn't say but, and it also sounds like she's a phenomenal officer as well. And so
and I believe sorry to cut you off, ma'am, but I believe she is on.
Commander Zuber, do you want to have the last words?
I don't. But thank you.
She's smart already, I know.
I apologize. I don't have police communications. My connection's unstable. Thank you for including us. The Captain Mannion, myself, and Lieutenant Soshi, we're going to make a great team. And I've taken probably as much notes as Seamus, maybe not as much, but close. So, but thanks for having us.
No, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, everybody, to the constituents. Also like to shout out to my colleagues, Alderman Byron Cicho Lopez and Alderwoman Pat Dowell. I know they've been listening as well. Like I said, we all represent the South Loop. We know there aren't boundaries in your head. And so we try and come together. Sounds like most of the issues, unfortunately, were in my ward, not some of the major crimes, but that's okay. They're listening as well, and just want to thank them for their partnership. And last but not least, thank all of you for joining us, and your presence here shows me how concerned you are about your community. We will have that smaller meeting, well, not necessarily a smaller meeting, more focused meeting, to see if there are other things that we can do with the businesses there in the community. And but the feedback I think they heard from you tonight will be well worth their time spent here And I can tell by their presence, especially since one of them lives in the South Loop, that they are listening and will execute, hopefully, on the suggestions that you gave them. So thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you, police.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.